Hello and good morning. Wednesday, we've gotten to Wednesday, so that's great. Um, Hot, right? Super hot weather out there. In fact, I need to go water when I finish here. Um, I'm not sure I actually left the house yesterday. I think I stayed in the house all day, but my husband did some watering, so um, not not saying I'm going to go check up on him, but I am going to go check the plants. I'm not sure he did the porch. So that's the thing. I always forget when we get a bit of rain that doesn't really help the porch flowers at all. So um, it is a constant uh, work carrying water to the plants, watering everything, making sure it stays alive. But it's a small job, right? It really, in the overall scheme of things, doesn't take that much time. It is definitely something you have to remember, though. It's funny, right? I mean, I've often had this feeling taking care of the chickens, right? But plants are really kind of the same thing, right? When you decide to care for chickens, you have to really that's a responsibility that you're taking on, right? You are their caretakers. Um, they are here, and you are responsible to make sure that they have what they need: their food, their water. If you fall down on that job, they will suffer and probably die, right? Um, Plants are the same way, right? We don't think of them in that sense. We don't think of them as living beings, but again, there's that feeling if you buy too many plants, right? Where are you going to put them? And oh, you can't bear the idea of throwing them away, right? You have, for some reason, you bought 8 tomato plants. Well, what do you need 8 tomato plants for? Unless you're going into like the tomato manufacturing business, you probably don't. Pardon me. You probably don't need that many tomato plants. But what do you do with them? You can't bear to get rid of them. You, they're your constant companions now. So um, having plants uh, can be like that, right? Um, you are here to keep them alive. I think that's why I like perennials so much, because perennials um, are like children, right? You get them started, and then they're on their own, right? Do your thing. I'm not gonna spend a lot of time checking on you when you're all grown up. You can just do your thing. Annuals are, always your problem, at least for the summer. Um, so it's a responsibility, right? It's something that we have taken on, um, and we may not think it's important, right? Maybe it isn't doesn't feel that important. Right? Who's gonna, you're not gonna get in trouble if your plants die, but it is a thing, right? And as we get more aware and more connected to this unity of self, you may start feeling a little more attached to your living creatures that are around you, um, a little more kinship with them, which is good, but it can also be kind of debilitating. So don't be careful with that. Don't go overboard. Um, I know people who literally treat their houseplants like better, maybe better than their children or their family members. Not that you shouldn't treat your houseplants well, but remember that they are uh, everything needs its appropriate level of attention. Um, but we have had this question before, right? When we talk about ahimsa and doing harm. What about plants? What about uh, this idea, that sure, eating animals is definitely, you are doing some harm by terminating that animal's life. But what about plants? Aren't you also doing that? And, you can make that case. There are um, groups in India that um, truly won't. Um, they won't eat anything that destroys the plant, right? So, fruit that comes off of a tree or a vine, something that does not damage the structure of the plant, leave that. Um, any sort of vegetable like that, but certainly no root vegetables, nothing that in the harvesting of the edible portion kills the plant. Um, which means they have pretty limited diet, right? And but it's a way again of really minimizing your footprint on the planet, on the life of other living things around you, and that's a lot, right? That would be a lot. But there's a couple reasons for this, right? So one is this idea of not doing any harm and not accruing any sort of karmic damage, let's say, to those around us. Um, the other is that these are the purest form of foods, right? So if you're looking for something that is the maximum amount of nutrition for yourself, now, and nutrition is a scale, right? It's a gradient, right? We know this just from our, sort of our Western education of food and food values that, right, you have on one hand something that is highly processed, almost unrecognizable from its natural form. That's down here, right? Up here would be, something in its very pure state, something that is just as you harvested it. Um, we understand, right, the difference between fresh and processed. So the next step in that is the idea that there's an energetic aspect to nutrition, um, and a spiritual aspect to nutrition, that you are taking in nutrition for the physical body, but also the spiritual body and um, the energetic body, right? We talk about bodies, different bodies, and it's obviously one body, but it's different layers, right? Um, and it corresponds pretty much the same, right? So you're really, you know, your bag of Cheetos over here, and your beautiful ripe apple that fell out of the tree into your hands is up here. Um, so right, and so not even just from an idea of doing no harm, but if you really want to give your body the gift, is to eat that which is freely given, right? Which is part of the cycle, right? That apple is dropping its fruit, that tree is dropping its fruit in the hopes that someone will eat it and pass those seeds along um, to create more apples. So you are absolutely fulfilling the role that cycle is looking for. Um, and when we talk about people who move from, say, vegetarian into veganism, that idea is the same, right? They are trying to move again into a space where they are not relying on animals and the farming of animals for their um, sustenance. And we can get, again, we can get carried away with this as well. But everyone has to decide what works for you, right? Um, I'm not going to tell you what the right thing to do is here. You're going to tell that to yourself. And what you tell yourself now I should say what you tell yourself, what you read in yourself now may change, right? My own beliefs about this and feelings about what I need to do have changed drastically since I started with yoga. And they change, they go up and down and they go around. Um, it As we are presented with new information, as we take our own temperature of what we know to be true, what we feel is true, we may change our opinion about things. We may change what we want to do. Yoga, at its very base, is that search for truth, but understanding that our ability to process that truth and to live that truth changes over time. So, what you may think is appropriate when you start yoga may not be what works for you as you continue. Don't be afraid of this change. Um, this is a natural unfolding. Right? We think of the layers in the body, the layers in this energetic sense. We are peeling them away, right? We're peeling away all of the things that we covered up our true self with, all of our beliefs, um, the information that we've been given from others, how we were raised, um, the influences that we've been around, what we see on TV, what we read in the papers. All of these things are layers that kind of pile on top of us. I think of it as um, when you go to a party and someone has a bed where they throw all the coats on it. It's kind of like that, right? Everyone's thrown their coat on you over the years. Um, and we collect those coats and we wear them. But as you evolve and change over time, those coats don't fit anymore. We need to get rid of them, right? And just like a closet that's too full, you can't find the good stuff underneath because of all the junk that's on top. So we get rid of that junk. But we don't do it heedlessly, right? Because those coats serve a purpose to some extent, right? We have them because we needed them at one point or another. Um, we don't want to just, tear the coats off, right? What happens is that you rise up. Right? This metaphor is just going all over the place, but you discard them. You don't need those coats anymore. Um, Maybe a better metaphor would be like if you go camping, right? And you wear in the morning, it's freezing cold, you have like 12 layers on. By the afternoon, you don't need them. That's how it works, right? You get rid of those things because you don't need them anymore. You see the truth. You're closer to the truth. You don't need those filters. You don't need those things to stand in between you and what is true. So that's one of the beautiful things, right? Nothing in yoga is external, it's all internal. You may get external information, but you don't act on that information until you're ready. And when you're ready, you'll know it, right? You don't have to be like, well, I don't know. Should I do this? I don't know. If you're asking those questions, you may be on, you're on the way, but you'll know it, right? You'll have that feeling. We talked about this before. This vibration feeling, this resonance. Um, it may start small, but then it gets bigger. And if you're paying attention, right, which we are doing as yogis, right, we're listening to our body, we're listening to what's happening ourself. We are making that connection. We're taking the time to do a little meditation to open ourselves up to that communication. Um, we'll know, right? We will get the message. And if you don't get it the first time, right? You didn't pick up. You declined the call, right? Because you didn't want to go there. You're like, no, I like a hamburger. I like a cheesesteak. I don't care about that stuff. Right? So you decline that call. Well, I mean, they're going to come bang on your door, and they're going to come, you know, visit you in person, right? So what I can tell you about this for me is that the idea of never been really big on the whole vegetarian thing. Um, I've always I didn't like tofu. I didn't really like beans and all that stuff. Um, but I found, right, as time has gone by, my body has changed. What I can eat has changed. And although I got to tell you, I do eat meat, um, I do not do as well on it as I did. And I can feel that. I can feel that I don't digest it as well. Um, there are other forms of nutrition that are feeling better to me these days. And sometimes that'll be your clue, right? You in your head, maybe you'll be like, it's fine, I don't mind. But your body will have a different story to tell you. Like, oh yeah, no, you need to stop doing that. So it's a lot. It's you'll get it from all over the place. The key is to stay aware and to notice these things, right? Don't be just like, oh, every time I just have a stomach ache. I always have a stomach ache. Well, why? Why do you always have a stomach ache? What are you eating? What are you doing? Right? Figure it out. And don't be afraid to make the changes. We often are nervous to make changes to things as basic as our diet. But um, if you think about it, it's one of the most important things that we do, right? It is our internal, right? We are taking the external and bringing it into our body. We want to make sure that it is appropriate for us. Um, and that is clear, like as we get older. When we were younger, it was not, we were able to process so much, right? Just any type of food, any type of anything, very resilient. Um, as our body changes, we don't have that anymore. We become um, more picky, right? Our body is more selective. Um, I think to me that's an amazing thing, right? So we can think of it as like a defect, right? And a lot of people do. They think as they get older, they can't do as much, right? They can't digest their food as well. Things bother them. Um, they can't do as much as they used to. But I see this as a refining, right? When you're young, you have no refinement, you have no discernment. Everything is kind of the same, it's all there. And you just eat anything and do anything. You take everything for granted. You're strong, you're healthy, you bounce back quickly, you know, you just don't bounce around. And I think this is because uh, we're so dumb when we're young, right? I mean, we are. We make a lot of really bad choices. We do things that are very much counter to our own good health. Um, we get ourselves into terrible predicaments. So we need that. We need that resilience so much, right? Because otherwise, we literally, as a species, would not have survived this far, right? Uh, but as we get older, we get smarter. We get more clever about how to do things. We understand, hopefully, we understand ourselves a little better. We don't need all of that, right? We can take all of that and put it somewhere else. Right? And that's where we move into a more spiritual place of being. Um, we don't have perhaps the physical strength and abilities that we did as a young person, but we also don't need them ideally, right? We have hopefully structured our life in such a way that we are done with some of that and we are moving into a different stage of our life, a different phase of our life. Um, It can be a difficult transition for some people. If you are a person that puts a great stock in your physical strength, in your physical abilities, in your physical appearance, right? um, Getting older is rough, right? You are breaking down your idea about what is important. Who are you? Um, but it's a journey we all have to take. And even if it's a rocky passage, we're getting to the truth, right? Who are you at the very center? You're not your body, you're not your strength or your beauty or your sexiness or your your knowledge. I mean, you aren't any of those things. You are simply the self, as is everyone else. And you don't have to work at it. You don't have to try hard. You can just be. You can just be. It's a huge thing and it's a wonderful thing. But um, it takes some time to get there, right? Um, that's where we start, though, right? We start there with that self love, big S, self, right? We can't love ourselves without loving everyone else at the same time because we're all the same, we're all connected. I was looking, I filled out a job application last night. For some, I'm looking into editing and proofreading. And the question they asked is, if you could teach the world something, what would it be? What a great question, right? Great question for a yoga teacher to answer. Um, and it would be that we are all one. Because if you know this, and not just know it, but really internalize it so that it is part of who you are, you can never be cruel. You can never be selfish. You can never do the things that we do to destroy our world. Um, that's the part that's missing. If we all knew this and we all acted on this, there could be nothing but peace and happiness. So, because I can't teach the world that, I will tell you about it, and hopefully, you will tell your people about it, um, or at least you will model that behavior. And you will have that peace in your own life, in your own circle, right? So if you think of your world, your realm as a pond, right? And you do things, when you do things, you send ripples out into that pond. They will touch everything around you, even if you don't see it, even if they're invisible ripples, and they may be, right? Um, but they're there. And you may think that no one's paying attention, but they are. Right? And even if they aren't consciously paying attention, unconsciously they are as well. So it's like when you have little kids and you think that they don't understand what's going on in your house because you talk quietly or you whisper behind their back. They know it all. They know it all because they just absorb it. Your actions, your words, even if um, the energy of what you're doing is what will affect everybody. So keep it up. Keep it up. Keep up the kindness and the love for everyone and everything. Okay, so let's do some asana. Sitting tall, shoulders back, breathing in through the nose, back out through the nose. One more breath, and then drop the chin. Breathe. I was working on the computer yesterday, and I can feel it all through the upper shoulders. We'll do some stuff for that today. Lift the chin. Head back to center. Take a breath. Lower. Back up and lower. And back to center. Let's walk the hands out. And then hands behind, fingertips away from the body, and just walk the hands back a little ways. Squeeze the shoulder blades, gaze up. Back up to your seat. Bring the arms wide for a deep breath, and then exhale, bringing hands together. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. Exhale. Inhale. And exhale. Interlace the fingers. Lift the hands. We're gazing up. And then arms down by your side. Inhale, lift. And lower. Lift. And lower. Once more. Lifting up. And then right hand down by your side. Reach across. Switch. And then we're going to bring the left hand up. So we're trying to bring this elbow sort of in the top of the head. The arm comes down, maybe touching the ear. And then we're just gently pulling the head over a little ways, but not too far. And then release that. And we're going to bring this hand back so it's maybe on the shoulder or behind. And that elbow is kind of pointing up, but trying to be behind the head as much as possible. I'm not really there. You may or may not be. And then we're just gently pressing down, right? And switch it around. So right arm. And you may find, right, that each arm has its own little thing. You can't do quite the same with one than the other. It's fine. And then again, arranging this. So we're gently pressing down. And then hands down by your side. Left hand on right knee, right arm behind. Sit tall, take a deep breath. And then we're twisting, turning the shoulders. Back to center. And switch sides. Back to center. Soles of the feet together. Take a deep breath. Lean forward. Coming back up. Let's bring the left knee out in front, and we've got the right leg on top and crossing here. Take a deep breath, fold forward. Back up, switch it around. Breath in and fold. Both legs out in front. Let's point and flex the feet. And then rotate through the ankles. There's a lot of noise in there today. I don't know. Come back around, opposite way. Bend the right knee, hug it in, sit tall, and then lower. And knee out to the side. Got the foot in close to the thigh. Take a deep breath. And then folding forward. Back up. Switch. And lower the knee. Take a deep breath and fold. Both legs together. Deep breath and fold. Bend the knees. Let's grab a hold of the toes. We can do that yogi toe lock with the first two fingers. inside of the big toe and thumb wraps around. If you don't like how that feels, you could also just grab the foot, lean back a little, get yourself set with some balance, and then maybe extension, a little or a lot. And then set your feet back down. We're going to lower onto the mat or rock back. Take a moment or two just to get stable here. And then we've got right ankle on top of left knee. Working your supine pigeon, which might be the leg coming in, or you could keep that left foot on the mat and just press the right knee away from the body. Just depends how tight everything is. Set the foot down, switch sides, and then whatever you did on the one side, let's do the same on the other. Set both feet back down. Let's bump the knees together and walk the feet to the outer edges of the mat. It gives you kind of a neutral lower back. And then I'm going to bring arms to a T or goalpost arms. Then just lower both knees towards the right. Set your gaze left. Knees back to center, and then they're moving left and we're gazing right. Back to center. Take a few breaths. Let's bring the knees into the chest. Rock a little side to side. Bring your hands onto the knees, and we're going to just draw some big circles with the knees, rotating through the body. And make these nice and slow and deliberate. A few times in one direction and then come back around. And we're back to center. Let's do happy baby here. So reaching for the instep maybe, or the ankles, whatever you can grab here. And then we're bringing the knees kind of towards the armpits. So there's a bend in the knee for sure. And you could stay here if it feels good to move a little side to side. That's entirely up to you. Sometimes it's interesting to hold a pose a little longer than we might normally do to see how it changes. Poses sometimes that you uh, feel are pretty easy to get into are hard to hold, right? Or maybe it's hard to get into the pose, but once you're there, you start to settle in and you find an ease within the pose that wasn't there before. With our asana, we are always looking for that place between uh, discomfort. We often are in discomfort, right? Discomfort isn't necessarily a bad thing. It means things are changing. You don't always have to be in discomfort, right? You can move in and out, but we just don't want to be in pain. Pain is not a good place to be. But discomfort, that feeling of stretching or moving a little in the body, is a good place, right? That's a place of transition, a place of transformation. Extend the legs. That feels good, right? Did you ever think that extending your legs like this would feel so great? Well, maybe you did. I don't know. And then when you're ready, we're going to lower. You can do one leg at a time, both legs together, whatever is your favorite today. And let's find a little comfort here and peace in Shavasana. Keep breathing. Feeling steady and comfortable. Resting on the mat. We are nourished, we are changed by that which we take into our body and that which we um, bring into our life, right? Our exposure, our influences, right? So they're important, right? We may think that we can live in a toxic environment and not be affected, but in truth, we can't. Um, if you're living in a place of hostility and anger, you too will become hostile and angry. Um, we can't help but absorb the energy and the vibrations of that which is around us. So, surround yourself with positive influences. As yogis, right, we are developing an internal resilience that will help us withstand situations and people who are difficult, who are challenging and negative, right? Negative influences. We want to have that internal resilience to pass through those things. But we don't need to have them in our daily life, right? We need supportive influences. We need um, things that help us thrive. So we discover what those things are. What are the things you need? What fills you up? What makes you feel um, fulfilled and um, supported? Right? Supported is a great way to say it because our ideally our lifestyle, right? Our influences, the food we eat, the people we hang around, our job, our activities, all of these things are supportive to us. They make us better. They improve um, our outlook and our um, performance, right? We become the best version of ourselves, the most realized and enlightened version of ourselves. Um, we come to our truth in these ways. It's hard to do this in an environment you hate or around people who bring you down, who criticize or belittle you. Um, these are not the things you want in your life. And when you are ready, when you have really accepted that, you will release yourself from these things, right? Nobody has to save you. You will save yourself um, because that truth that is at our core will not stand for this. Um, it will discard, it will throw away the coats and layers and things that you thought were important once. Um, but just like clothing that does not fit anymore, get rid of it. Move on to what really works for you today. When you feel ready, we're moving now, fingers and toes, hands and feet. Maybe stretching if you feel like it. And then you can make your way up to a seat, but you could also just stay on the mat if you want. You know it's time for 5-minute meditation, and you can do that however you want. Maybe on the floor, maybe in a seat. You could even do it in a chair. If you want to jump up and get in a chair, you can do that. Just move peacefully. Um, Take your time. There's no rush. Getting comfortable wherever you are, keeping that peaceful state of mind. Breathe. A light focus, right? Not intense, but just gentle, relaxed focus. If the mind is wandering, come back to the breath. Okay, we're back. Hopefully that was a peaceful one for you. Remember, if your mind is wandering, come back to the breath, come back to the physical sensation of being in the body, or find a little focus, right? Something simple, an image, a word or phrase, a little mantra, or anything, something to keep you anchored in this space, right? Not up in the air with your thoughts, right? And if you disappear, come back, come back. We do this over and over and over. Um, that's the process. And it becomes a habit. As we do it more, it gets easier. Um, but some days will be hard, and some days will be very, very joyous. But some are going to be a struggle, right? Don't let it set you back. It's not, a straight shot. It's it's all over the place, and that's okay. Um, just let it be what it is. Okay. Have a great Wednesday. Uh, yeah, be back tomorrow.